but all you could hear was the man screaming and sounds that I don't want to describe in the background. The camera was then turned back around and the sight that I saw was disturbing. It was
Nightmare Files.
when I was a little girl, maybe around 11 years old. A cult tried to recruit me and my friends through the dark web. This was in 2012. We lived in a gated community, but somehow this church named Assembly of Prayer Christian Church would have its members walking around trying to get everyone to attend their church. My friends and I would go to the local pool for our neighborhood, and these people were taking pictures of everyone, including parents, lifeguards, and us. We looked up their Facebook, but none of the pictures would be there. It only showed the outside of their building. Then a rumor started to circulate that these pictures were on the deep web. I didn't believe it until all of my friends and I went over our friend Greg's house. Greg went on a regular browser, but somehow got on the deep web. I didn't know much about it, so I just watched. We looked up Assembly of Prayer Christian Church, and some Facebook popped up again. We went to it, but we can see more photos than we could before. It was like we had more access than before, but still didn't see much, just inside their chapel. That's when Greg mentioned that the rest of the photos might be on the dark web. I only knew about the deep web, but they sounded like the same thing. That's when he went on a browser. It wasn't Tor, it was some other browser that I can't remember the name of. He made a call and asked someone on the phone where and how to search what he was looking for. We interrupted him, telling him that he needs to just put the church name in again. He said it's not that easy. When he got off the phone, he searched Free the Dolphins from Yellow Cowboy. Then the Facebook page popped up, but we had complete access, not as an admin, but as if we were a friend or we were following the page. Then we saw the pictures. But what was creepy is that every single picture had a name of the person, or multiple names if it were more than one person. We then saw our pictures. There were a picture with about 8 of us in it walking to the pool with a link under it. Greg clicked on it. We entered a live video. We were looking at the inside of the chapel with a man standing on a podium. He said, "Welcome, number 77. In the top right-hand corner of our screen was 77. We were number 77. Greg typed hi. Then the man on the stage said that he was called Chief, so just type Chief if we need him. Greg typed okay. Chief then said that he would continue. He picked up a picture. It was one of my friends. He held it in front of the camera, then everyone in the chat put numbers. I saw a lot of numbers between 1 and 5. A few were higher than 5. Greg looked at us confused. Then Chief looked at the camera and said, "Number 77, we're waiting for you." I believe he typed 3. I can't really remember. For the next hour or so, this man that was called Chief had put all of our pictures in front of the camera, and we were rated between 1 and 10. By coincidence, I had the highest rating. Out of nowhere, the stream ended, and we were back on the Facebook page with all of our pictures. But all of our pictures disappeared. Being that this is all we got on for, we got off, and all of us went home. The next couple of days seemed weird. The church people disappeared. No one was asking us to join anymore. One day, everything became even more strange. One of my friends were over my house while my parents were at work. We were on Facebook watching YouTube. We both paused and looked at each other. I looked outside the window and one of the people from the church were just standing there. I looked back at my friend and she pointed at the front door. I looked out the peephole and another guy was standing there. We looked out the back window and there were literally 20 people standing in a formation. So I called the police like any other person would. And of course, these people were long gone by the time the police arrived. The police said that they will keep a report on file. They tried looking at the security cameras throughout the neighborhood, but nothing was showing these people, and there were time gaps within the footage. It's been a while since this incident, but I will never forget what happened when I went on the dark web. I'm someone who goes on the deep and dark web constantly. It's not what people think, where it's evil and overpopulated with crazy people. That's only a small percentage of the dark web. Years ago, my girlfriend broke up with me and I put her personal information on a forum, and soon after that she disappeared. It's been a while since that happened, and I've ran into people that have disrespected me since. I'm not an intimidating guy, nor do I look intimidating, nor do I ever have physical or verbal conflicts. I always think to myself that these people don't know what could happen to them. I work at a fast food restaurant, and at the time of this story, my manager was really on my case about everything. I would be late, mess up orders, have an attitude with customers, and some other stuff I could name, but it's so much. I understood that I was messing up, but the tone that this guy would talk to me embarrassed me in front of my coworkers, and sometimes in front of customers. One day though, that was the last straw. So one day I walked into work, 5 minutes before I was due to clock in, and my manager out loud said that the window licker is finally on time, in front of customers and my coworkers. Everyone laughed at me. During my whole shift that night, he would direct smart comments toward me, while still yelling at me for everything that I did wrong. I made up my mind. I was going to find that forum and give his information. On my walk home, I was going back and forth with myself about whether to do it or not. By the time I made it home, I made up my mind. I didn't shower nor did I change clothes. I went straight to my laptop and I searched. I possibly clicked maybe 100 links because on the dark web there are links that will take you down any rabbit hole. A link named Pork Chop piqued my interest. When I clicked it, I was directed to an About page. It only said 6 words. We find it, we chop it. And another link that said, here's an example of what we do. I clicked it, of course. As soon as I clicked on it, the picture went to the point of view from an old school camera, with the date and time in the corner of the screen. The person behind the camera approached the man and followed him. A few minutes go by, and the man noticed what was happening. He turned around and approached the camera while yelling and screaming at the person for following him. Then all of a sudden, you see 5 huge guys dressed in black wearing a pig mask run from behind the man and drag him into the dark. The person holding the camera turns the camera to his or her face and leaves it there for about 5 to 10 minutes. That person also wore a pig mask, but all you could hear was the man screaming and sounds that I don't want to describe in the background. The camera was then turned back around and the sight that I saw was disturbing. It was something that no one would ever want to see. Some people say that they wouldn't wish it on their worst enemy, but I did. After the video was over, there were links. One said pork and the other said chop. I clicked on the pork and it prompted me to put in a code. I didn't have one, so I backed out. So I clicked on chop. There was information that needed to be filled out, like name, height, description, and place. I filled out all the info for my manager. And the place, it was my job. I submitted the form. At the end of the screen, it said, see you soon. 4 days later, while at work, my manager approached me and decided to apologize for the way he treated me, and offered to give me more hours and said that he will work with me more often because he sees potential in me. A few hours later, it was close to the end of the night. My manager helped me with the trash and took it out for me. As I were putting chairs on top of the table getting ready to mop, I looked outside and saw my manager looking over at something, but he looked worried. I moved to get a better look and I saw what he was looking at. He was surrounded by 6 people in a pig mask with weapons in their hands. I ran outside as they swarmed him, except for one person. He had a camera. I forgot all about these guys, and then I put his information on the website. I ran outside as they approached him. He looked at me for help, but I ran back inside and called the police. It took them 10 minutes to get there. When I looked back outside, what I saw was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I wish I can get the image out of my head. Between the time of me initially seeing them, calling the cops, and running back outside, these guys were gone, but my manager was still there. I went to his funeral the next week. The next day I received an anonymous email that had the whole video. They were watching him his whole time he was on shift. I don't know how they got my email. I never provided any of my information. Till this day, I still feel sick because my manager was starting to be nice to me that day. I can't go back on the dark web. My name is Chelsea, and this happened in 2008. I would go to work, come home, cook dinner for my husband, then lay on the couch every day. I'm pretty ugly, so my husband doesn't really interact with me so much. So I would constantly look up weird stuff on my laptop to keep myself entertained. So one day, my friend came over on my day off while my husband was at work, and I told her how bored I was with all of this garbage on the internet. She mentioned what we know now as the dark web, and began explaining it to me. She let me know that drugs were sold there, hitmen are advertised there, and that I can watch weird and crazy videos on there. Something like YouTube, but for the sick and demented. I told her I want to check it out, so we did. We went on this website called Co.Ag. At first the videos were boring, then the weird stuff began to be recommended. I clicked on a channel called Leprechaun Charlie. We watched a video of a guy slowly fading away, if you know what I mean. He was laying in the bed and looked very sick. He was breathing rapidly with his stomach going up and down fast. Then it just stopped. Then there was a man that walked from behind the camera, what looked like a man. He was dressed like a leprechaun. He was also a very small person, what we call little people. He walked on the stool to see on the bed because he was so short. He looked down at the guy, walked out of the view of the camera, and came back with a pot. It said the word gold on it. He smelled the pot, looked at the camera, and said that it smells like gold, and he laughed. He stood over the body that was on the bed and turned the pot upside down. A clump of what looked like chocolate came out of the pot and landed on a person in the bed. The rest of the chocolate in the pot was coming out slowly. It looked stupid. We paused the video and wrote a comment that said, "This is foolish and fake." It wasn't in my name, so what's the harm in commenting? Not even 20 seconds later, Leprechaun Charlie replied and said, "We'll see, Chelsea." I was surprised that he knew my name, and I asked my friend how he knew my name. She told me that he could have possibly used my IP address, but I thought that was hidden. So of course, we got off. Weeks go by, then I received an email from a very weird email. Usually I wouldn't open emails from weird names, but the subject said Leprechaun Charlie. When I opened it, all it said was, "We'll see." I immediately called my friend because she was the only person that knew about this. I told her and she seemed shocked, but I laughed it off and I blamed her, but she denied it. The next night, while sitting in my front living room, I saw something out the corner of my eye run across my lawn, then behind a bush. I looked out, but I thought I might have seen a raccoon. We had a lot of those, especially at night. A few minutes later, I received another email from a weird email again, with the same subject, Leprechaun Charlie, with an attached video. I clicked on it. Laying down on the bed was my friend. Then the leprechaun guy appeared from behind the camera. He had a pot in his hand like last time. He smelled what was in it and said it smelled like gold. He walked over to my friend and she began to scream, then I turned it off. I sat there in silence for about a few seconds. I moved my curtains back and this guy was dressed like a leprechaun, just standing there. He then began to scream for me to watch the whole video. I screamed and my husband ran downstairs. I told him what happened and that someone was outside the window. He ran out there but no one was there. I called my friend but she never answered. We called the police and they thought I was crazy until I told them to check my friend's apartment. I went there when the police did and she was passed out and chained up on the living room floor with what looks like chocolate all over her until the smell hit us. It definitely was not chocolate. The email and the video disappeared. This still haunts me years later, and she's still scarred mentally. I have not been on the dark web since.
Nightmare Files.